getting to join the JourneyQuest cast was really exciting for me, but it was also made me very nervous because I was coming into a role that had been already established by Anne Kennedy Brady, who's an awesome actress, and particularly because this group of people, everyone is such a close-knit group, so I definitely had a sense coming in that I was joining a team of people who had a long sort of history together and had really established a rapport, and obviously had a lot of fans who were hugely invested in these characters, so I felt a big sense of responsibility, and I was really nervous on the first day, but because everyone is so warm and welcoming, and Anne was actually on set with us for the first 5 days of shooting or so she and I got to spend a lot of time together talking about the character and sort of bringing me into the fold a little bit. It was a really great kind of introduction to the shooting experience, and honestly this role has just been like my dream role, so it's been a real, I don't know, a real treat to get to play this character. I had seen a bit of JourneyQuest, but I hadn't watched the full two first seasons until Christian called me up to ask me if I'd be interested in this role, which I was very much, and I went home immediately and watched all of the first 2 seasons in a row, just straight through, a couple of times actually, just to immerse myself in the part. By the time I got to that audition with Christian, I was just soaked in JourneyQuest.
But the thing about the potions and being high about them is that it's something we've been thinking about actually for quite a while. I think it was my very first day on set for the very first shoot of season 1 actually. We shot the piece where Wren runs away, falls on her satchel, and gets high. So we had already shot it 6 years ago. So I had kind of already thought about it, and it was much more of like a, I don't know, just like really giggly, I don't know, I didn't really think about like, because I don't know what potion high is like. I mean, maybe it's like all kinds of things. Maybe it's just like a sugar rush, pixie sticks up the nose or whatever, which would actually make a lot of sense for Wren. This time, going back, it was completely different because instead of being in the middle of the woods, I was on a green screen and flying around. I think the weirdness of the situation actually lent itself pretty well. And Christian standing off to the side and saying things like, "There's a dragon! Try and catch the dragon!"
So there were a lot of challenges to editing the drug trip that Wren goes on in this episode. The first challenge, of course, is anytime you work with green screen, finding the right take for the actor to really make the story work. When you're at the editing phase, you don't have any VFX, so you're kind of in the same boat that the actor is, where you're not editing against anything. You're editing against the sort of the ghost of something that hasn't appeared yet. The biggest challenges, I think, overall, were finding the right beats and finding the right cuts without having the entire world created around the green screen yet.
So the interesting thing about this situation was that it was more than just having to draw on my imagination. It was more than just being like, oh, when this is finished, I know there's going to be a big castle in the background, and here I am. You know, maybe there is a dragon or whatever if we continue with our dragon theme. For this one, I had no idea what the actual trip out was going to look like. The script says something like, Wren floats in a sea of stars, or something like that. And I'm like, what does that mean? Am I going to be like the center of a whirling thing? Like, I had no clue. It's a trip out. Wren oohs and ahs and travels through time and space.
Emilie was great. She did a great job of really sort of telegraphing what the scene was about, but finding the proper way to cut around a world that's not there is always challenging.
With the scene where Silver Tom and the bear go skipping off and Wren is left on her own and she's talking to someone and we see there's clearly nobody there. Again, from the script, I didn't know if there was anybody specific. It was kind of up to me to just sort of decide who I was chatting with. So I just took it as, you know, a person of her imagining. And that is the way it was filmed. I think probably for 2 takes. I was told a couple of takes in who I'm talking with, and I won't say who it is, but it changed everything. And then it changed nothing. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like I had the, like, Emilie being surprised at me, like, oh, this changes how I'm going to react. And I did a take like that. And then I was like, nah, it really doesn't. Because Wren is still who she is, and she's still in the state, and all of this stuff.
We didn't have several of the costume pieces we needed for those scenes, which ended up being a good thing because it meant that we had to cut out a bunch of that ogre scene. I was, honestly, day one was by far, on location, which was technically day two, was by far the hardest day for me. Just because it felt like everything was going wrong. We were always running out of daylight the entire day, and all I saw was the fact that I had to do this 15 more times over the next 3 weeks, and that it probably was going to be terrible. And we were filming in a park, and they closed the park at a certain time, and they put up these barricades that are in the ground that pop up at a certain time. And the maintenance man came to pop up the barricades while we were in the middle of shooting a scene. And I, not wanting to miss out on what little time we had left, may have gotten in my car and driven very quickly to the end of the park and parked my car over one of those barricades to keep them from putting it up. I'm not super proud of it, but I was kind of at the end of my rope at that point that day, and it was the only thing I could think of to save what we had left. We got that scene. It looks great.
So Daggie's Tavern was very interesting because we had to do exterior and interior, and unfortunately the location we had for the exterior, Fort Nisqually, didn't quite match what we were looking for. So we had to shoot all the exteriors one entire week and then spent the entire week for the other one on the interiors. The build for the tavern took about 2 days. It was 8 art department people working over 2 days to fill it, to build it. We were lucky we got a lot of free props from the Seattle Opera House, which was amazing. We had close to, I want to say 40 extras per day. A lot of matching things, a lot of matching movements we had to do, from people exiting, entering the entrances from the inside of the tavern that had to match to where they were going, you know, in the real world. We really jam-packed it near the end. Some days were just 10 to 15. But then for the big singing stuff, the concert stuff, that's when we had our full crowd and all our Kickstarter backers, which I think they had a blast, which was fun.
Well, getting to originate a character is always a huge thrill. And then also getting to play a character that is totally different from what we expect from normal fantasy. I love that Daggie talks about that. She says, you know, hey, if dwarf kind had their way, I'd be, you know, washing the floors for someone in a mine down below the surface. And she's bucking the system. These are the rules and this is what's expected of me, but I think that my calling is over here. I'm going to do this. This actually sounds a lot more fun. Joining the JQ troupe was a dream come true. It just was. I've been a fan for years, and I got the call for the audition, and I got the sides, and I remember being on the couch like cramming for it and being like, oh my god, this character is so amazing. I want to play this character so bad. Actually being on set and getting to play with everyone without sounding pretentious, it felt just like coming home in a way. Everyone who worked on it was so welcoming and so encouraging and instantly like a family, and you're just part of that family. And it was the best experience I've ever had on set.
I don't really know that it was. I can't say one way or another. I didn't write the script.
There's been some fan discussion and speculation on whether anyone other than Perf can hear the sword when it speaks. But we kind of set that to rest when Daggie overhears it. And that has always been the case, is everyone can hear the sword speaking. It's just most of them are too intimidated or just don't know how to respond to a talking hunk of sharpened metal.
It was great to work with Fran Kranz again, have him back on set after season 2, and especially because we got to play more. I felt like I learned a lot from him, just technically on set. Like, he would ask questions, and I was like, oh, I hadn't, like technical questions, literally, you know, about like what the cameras were doing and where to go. And I feel like it was fun, just really fun to play and like see his reactions and see how he really fits in with this group in that everybody's so willing to play and kind of like, okay, let me shake that off. I'm going to try it this other way and take it from another tack. Plus, it was just nice to hang out with him because like we had a good time last season and it was great to catch up and, you know, see how he's doing and what he's up to. I loved the fight out in the inn yard was super fun. People would be like, are you guys okay? Do you want to take this easy? We're both just like, nope, let's go for it. And it was really fun just to have someone who's just ready to be in and just play and literally pull each other around by the legs and push each other down. And it was really fun.
So in episode 3, Carrow basically executes his nuclear option and attempts to resurrect himself. And he's driven to this decision by another encounter with death, and it's something he's been hesitating on, thinking that maybe he could heal himself otherwise, or that Vieras would intercede. And here he's basically trying to force the issue. And when it doesn't work, when the flow of energy corrupts, and it is the ultimate rebuke, and Carrow is left, and it's where death can first really get her claws into him. It's where the cracks in his faith begin to really show.
In this scene, Carrow still believes that Vieras is on his side and you know, someone that he can call upon to, you know, help out. He realizes that he's never actually tried resurrection, you know, which is something like a spell that he knows. Death, if you notice, like, it's pretty obvious that she knows what's going to happen, but she needs to let Carrow, like, sort of find out for himself. If she, like, strong arms him too much, then he's going to buck against that sort of kind of thing. He needs to find these things out on his own, and she's aware of that. So she's just like, oh, no, don't stop, don't do that, kind of stuff like that, and allows him to hang himself. So when the resurrection happens, it's incredible for Carrow because he thinks he's finally going to be restored, and it's under his own merit. It's between the relationship with his god. It's wonderful, and it is very emotional, but then, like, the other shoe drops. He knows that it didn't work, and now what's going to happen? And in fact, actually, it becomes like an even worse scenario, and that's really exciting when that plays out for the rest of the season. So there's some moments in season 3 where Carrow's eyes go all black when that id, or whatever you want to call it, like really kind of comes into play, and like that darkness that is slowly enveloping it becomes more of a thing. That's done sort of visually by having black eyeballs. And I was like, you know, let's do the sclera lenses, like a big old suction cup, like on your eyeballs. That's cool, but also maybe I get to keep some sclera lenses, you know, like that's kind of neat. I kept on like advocating this to Tony Becerra, and he was not having it.
The crazy thing we had for Carrow this season is we had these all black lenses, which was Brian S. Lewis's suggestion for that. Unfortunately, the amount of time we had scheduled wasn't safe. It was it didn't work for just having those lenses in for that amount of time. So we were very happy with the VFX Adam Herrera was able to do for us from Transor Galactica. And I think they look amazing.
One of the things that I found really interesting this season is the orcs had a complete redesign in terms of their overall effects. I was delighted I actually got ears this time around. This season, actually in this room, all of the orcs got together here with some of the makeup team. They did complete body casts of our faces and built them out for us individually. There's a lot more detailing. There's a lot more where they're just building off our own faces and then building exaggerations off of them. It was really, really cool. Just being able to move and express with it was much easier this time around.
Actually had to cut a number of scenes with the orcs in order to make the timeline and the shooting schedule work. As it was written, the script picked up where season 2 left off, with the orcs going into the Temple of All Dooms, which was in the process of being looted by its employees. Grelnock and Yart try to convince Relk, we did our best, time to go back to the tribe. Rilk then says, do you have a library? Is there a library in the temple? And in the library is where they find a spell book, some magic items that allow them to catch up to the party, and where Rilk finds a Orcish English phrase book that he uses to start learning the language in case he should run into Wren again. The Temple of All Dooms was just one more set that we couldn't afford. I rewrote the scene so that all that information was kind of hinted at once they had arrived.
So all of the orcs, when we're given our scripts, we have them in English, we have them in Orcish written, and then we also have a phonetic breakdown of the Orcish. More what we're doing is running through it in Orcish and just getting any pronunciation corrections that we need, which are always many. Nobody speaks Orcish the same way in this. You get to see some characters that you know in this season speak Orcish that you haven't heard speak it as much in the past, and they don't sound necessarily like any of the rest of us that you've heard speak that way a lot.
He has been on this quest for a long time. He's been in love with this woman who won't give him the time of day for a very long time. It's less about his attraction to her in return, which obviously is there. It's more about being looked at like a person for the first time in a long time. He's more than just this, unwilling chosen one. He's a human, he's a person who has feelings.
So the singing was very special for me in this for a lot of reasons. I actually wrote the song when I was cast. It was written as part of my character work for Wren when we first started talking about who she is. The song was part of the backstory for her. So it was really special to me to have in it because it's something that I personally had been working on for, 6-7 years. I feel like it was the perfect setting. Yeah, on the stage, and because you can just pick something up and set it down and let it live and not have to explain. You can have that musical theater moment.
My favorite times of working with Jeremy and Jesse, we spend so much of any given day on set in the makeup chairs. A couple hours plus getting in, a little less than that, but still a fairly long process. And my favorite thing dealing with that is just listening to Jeremy continue to try and crack jokes and be the center of attention while we all need to be still and have makeup put on. You show up on set at 5 a.m, let's go slam down some coffee and sit in a chair and get green.
Yes. Partially. There's an expression, fish can't see the water until you pull it out of the ocean and go, look at that. And so part of it has just been, how would another sentient society that is not human make fun of us? What would they think about us? What would they think is ridiculous about us and goes beyond the pale of how can they possibly live like that? And the orcs, just seemed the perfect mirror to hold up.
On his way to the first town, so I think Glorion and Roderick probably killed the majority of the people that they interacted with. Knowing what I do about Glorion's character, I'm going to say that he probably just thought it was a bit of exercise, get the blood flowing, a little bit of calisthenics. I can't imagine them running into somebody and probably not getting into some kind of fight or argument or engagement. But the great thing about Glorion is that he doesn't really realize that he is about to get into an argument or trouble or a fight or danger or anything like that. He's just having a really great time. Solving problems, meeting people, enjoying life. Yeah.
Carrow's journey certainly takes a darker turn this season. And there's been a lot of speculation, going back to even season 1, of when will Carrow be healed. The audience now, and Carrow himself, is realizing that might not actually happen. That might be unlikelier than remaining in the form that he's in. What we're kind of doing here is getting to a difficult and painful examination of faith, the comfort of religion. I think that when religion is too comfortable, it and doesn't ask you for anything, doesn't require you to challenge your beliefs, you're never really bump into any form of adversity. What is your faith based on? If it's just reciting stuff by rote and maintaining a certain level of comfort, then Do you actually have faith? Have you ever actually been tested? Carrow's going through that now. It's about the journey, not the destination. And that faith, you should struggle with it. If you accept it as rote, you don't have faith, because that's the whole nature of it.
Carrow is undergoing a revelation of faith, most definitely, especially in this season. Much like his decomposing face, the cracks in his faith are becoming more and more apparent. He hasn't changed who he fundamentally is exactly, yet he's being rejected by his God, who's supposed to be all forgiving and all loving. He doesn't understand how those two things, can be one and the same. He can't reconcile the fact that he's rejected, and like that's difficult for him to actually grasp.
When the human orcs meet Glorion, finally for the first time get to face off, while Glorion has no idea that they're orcs.
Hearing the orcs speak English, or attempt to speak English, just my favorite thing. They're so great.
I love right before they go in, and Jeremy's orc comes out and he goes, "To Leeds!" with the ears. Like, that's my favorite thing. It makes me laugh every time. To Leeds!
Let's all eat a cow. Money's not imaginary.
When they drink the potion that lets them speak English, Anglais, yeah, super good, super hilarious.
The doily floors me every time.
They're human, and they're just loving it. Like just throwing on the swagger and what they think humans are into, and like to see orcs who don't have a high respect for humans act like humans, and what that means comedy-wise, as far as physical comedy and just like the words, is priceless.
Yart and Grelnock in the store, it was delightful. Like the thing that Jeremy Spray was doing with the pipe.
I think episode 3, season 1, the grammar argument is still probably my favorite episode moment in the entire series.
The Daggie Nara rank-off comes out of this idea that there's an animosity between elves and dwarves. They don't like each other. They do not get along. Here there's a chance to actually vent some of those feelings, that the animosity between these peoples.
The insult off between Daggie and Nara was something I think I was really nervous about going into when I was reading through the script. Being new to the role, how do I sort of authentically bring something new in that we haven't seen Anne do in the past too? I'm not really an insult off kind of person in my day-to-day life, so just getting to do that is very fun, but also kind of different.
I loved the insult off when I realized that all the extras that were there that day were so great, first of all. And so when I realized that we could play together so well. This is my bar. You're my patrons. You're on my side. Did you want to come back here and drink here? You better cheer for me. Getting that and all that energy and excitement was hilarious. I loved it. It was very empowering. So this is the first time that we've seen the double moon tattoos on both faces in the same shot. In previous seasons, people didn't necessarily notice it right away. They might have noticed it on multiple rewatchings. People weren't sure whether or not all elves have that tattoo, but then we had the elven messenger who didn't have that tattoo.
So we've seen the assassins' face tattoos in season 2, but season 3 was the first time we really get to see Nara and the assassin together side by side with their identical matching tattoos. These two characters are inextricably linked in some way. It's still kind of opaque. There's still a sense of we don't know entirely why or how.
I don't know if there are fan theories about why we had the same tattoo. I would love to hear them if there are. So let me know your fan theories about the tattoos.
Scott C. Brown started the edit while he was in the United States and finished it in England. It was challenging, to say the least. We learned how to do non-paired editing very quickly. We sort of got a real rhythm to our workflow. We spent a lot of time failing, which is why by the end we were so good at succeeding.
I love this episode because it's very vaudevillian in many ways. There's mistaken identity, there's slapstick comedy, there's physical comedy. A lot of this comes from some of the earliest influences I had when I was watching stuff as a kid. I loved British sitcoms growing up. The really well-written, really snappy ones that didn't savor the dialogue. You know, a particularly witty line wasn't the focus of a scene. It was the deliverance of it by a really smart, probably asshole-ish character who's continuing on in the scene, interacting, whatnot there. So specific like Blackadder and Fawlty Towers, the Python stuff, Chef and Red Dwarf and the Young Ones. Highbrow, intelligent characters doing ridiculous stuff. You can have smart comedy, and you can have comedy that is historical and that is not set in the present, that is set on a spaceship 3 million years from Earth, or that is set in Elizabethan England, and you can still make stuff relatable and really funny. And plus you can always put Jesse Keeter in a dress.
I think Glorion comes from Matt Vansel's writing of the character. You know, he feeds so much into the text that allows you to know who this character is. And he has a lot of descriptions built into the text as well. We had some great discussions that have continued to inform my decisions playing Glorion. And, you know, a lot of that has to do with, you know, what was Glorion's childhood like? You know, what could a person go through that makes them such a wonderful adult? You know, a lot of the things that happened to Glorion when he was a kid maybe were difficult things. He didn't grow up in a great household. He didn't have a great parental model for himself. And you see some of that in season 2 when he's having that sort of that lucid dream and he sees the child version of himself and that interaction. The real basis of the character has to be, like many other characters, in truth, in some version of truth. This character is just being himself. He's saying everything that he thinks without any kind of filter, and he's pursuing his objective wholeheartedly. You know, he wants the sword of fighting, and so everything else that happens between him and getting to the sword of fighting is just a consequence of that need, of that desire. I don't think that he judges that. I don't think he thinks harshly of himself for that. He just wants something so bad that he's willing to do anything to get it, and he's not going to look back at his past and say, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't have killed that village of elderly people. No, it's in the past.
I was actually a French major in college, and I studied abroad in French and things like that. So I've been learning another language since I was, 14. I guess I kind of attacked Orcish with the same methods in a way. Vansel's enough of a geek, and it's wonderful that it actually has rules. And you can be like, oh, I understand the root of this word, and I see how he's conjugated it. I mean, it was actually kind of awesome.
So there's a question that's been raised is why can't the Oracle answer Nara's question? And it's specifically in how it's phrased. It's not that she doesn't know the answer, it's that she cannot say. So it's a question of permission. I don't want to give anything away. If I give more than that, it may solve the answer. But the question is, why could an oracle not see the future?
Before, Carrow wouldn't be okay with picking up Death's symbol. After all the things that has happened to him thus far, being rejected by Viserys and also being rejected by his fellow shepherds of Viserys, he's beginning to sort of think that there are other possibilities out there. Maybe there's something to this. So he's sort of exploring. He's just sort of like wayward and kind of aimless. He's just sort of just in case kind of a scenario, not necessarily intending to use it. So I think that's why he might be okay with doing that.
There were particular challenges shooting on a disc golf course, especially in the spring. Winter has just ended and the Dude Bros come out to play. In addition to all the PBR cans we had to clean up, we had several hippie attacks throughout filming those 4 days on that particular set. These disc golf courses are like free public parks, and we closed down, a couple holes here and a couple holes there while keeping the course open, because it is a public place, and although we had permission to be there filming and the permits and such, we've got to keep the course open. It was just a constant stream of airplanes, beer cans, bong smoke, and Dude Bros just shouting at us from the woods.
this scene was sort of my first chance to actually read this character, which was exciting and nerve-wracking. It spoke to how important I think this scene was, and we hear so much more about her motivations and what drives her, what causes her to make the choices she does in this season that's so sort of fraught with significant choices. Just getting kind of an inside look at that made me so much more excited to dig into this character who is strong and intelligent, but also flawed in all sorts of ways. So getting to share that for the first time with the audience, with the fans, was amazing.
I hope the fans try to puzzle out all the answers to Wren's questions that the Oracle rattles off, because there are some in there that are going to play major plot points in the final 2 seasons of the show. There are some I think they should be able to figure out right away, and there are a couple in there that are red herrings.
The Oracle in episode 9 answers all of Wren's questions at once, and I think it's going to be really fun for the fanatic JourneyQuest fan to really puzzle through those answers and figure out what the questions were.
I hope the fans can, and then they can tell me, because I didn't know. I definitely could figure out probably a dozen of them. But there was a whole bunch where I was like, oh, and then no idea. Yeah.
It was the very first day of shooting. We worked at Pacific Rip and Lighting and went into the giant green screen studio that they have there, which Tony painted all by himself because he didn't have anything to do that day, really, other than, executive produce JourneyQuest and then AD JourneyQuest. Instead, he painted the green screen. I put Ben Dobbins in a in a green morph suit and had him be the unicorn. So if anybody's wondering who that is, Steve Wolbrecht was also there.
So I end this season in a pretty bad place for the assassin. I've been bit. Something is going on that's changing me, and I don't know what it is. The Wicked Kings through the Woodcutter have kind of ominously hinted that I'm changing. I'm becoming something else. I'm becoming what did this to me, and what did this to me is the undead cleric. We know something's gonna happen. I'm not just dead and gone. And it'll be really, really fun to get to keep that journey, continue that journey, and see where it goes.
That is actually one of my favorite things we shot, despite the logistical problems.
That was a difficult day. We only had that day to do it. We couldn't reshoot. It wasn't in the cards, and the light was going against us. I mean, we ended up getting some beautiful shots, but obviously, time was a ticket. It was very difficult to actually get to the set because it was on a hill at the disc golf course. We had to truck up a whole lot of gear, and it was on a slant, and it was really tough.
There were definitely a lot of challenges to that shoot. One of the biggest ones, certainly for me, was that it was shot on a really steep incline, and it was dirt, but there was definitely loose gravel and things. So the angle that we were shooting at, I was supposed to attack Carrow from above and run past him while drawing my sword, which, at least from a stage combat perspective, it's a very dangerous situation to be drawing your sword and running at someone on an incline.
There was these really interesting fight scenes, and I haven't actually really got to do any fight scenes, and so I was really pumped about it.
Trying to do that while keeping Brian safe and keeping me safe, and my shoes don't have a lot of traction. It was slick, and getting it lined up so it looked really good. I know we reshot that sequence a number of times in a number of different ways just to make sure that we could really get that effectively, and it was tough.
Among other things, as a director, Christian has a lot of experience being a fight director in shows and other web series and other movies, and he was able to see that scene, and he had a lot of really great ideas of how it should look.
Having this huge fight scene with no actual choreography, because we don't have a giant action scene budget, I decided to kind of shoot it like you would a samurai movie, lots of giant close-ups, cutaway shots, have all the action read in these very, very small moments.
I also got to have the exciting experience of falling backwards down a steep hill where our amazing fight coordinator, Drago, was behind me with a big sort of mattress, basically, there to kind of catch my fall.
there is a green screen gag where Carrow is cut in half. And so in order to do that, we had to have another actor in green screen from the waist up, and I was the opposite. When I actually fell off the slope, I had Tony Becerra and a couple other people to help me stop from falling. Tony Becerra got a lot of Brian S. Lewis butt that day.
Tony still complains about Brian's giant butt, even though it's not that big.
This is an ending that we've been planning since the writing of the first season of JourneyQuest in 2009. It's always been there. Throughout the multiple iterations of the script, that fight and the death of Perf has always been there. If you go back and you look over it, yes, you can see the seeds of it. As much as we might laugh at Glorion and his antics, he is a murderer and a psychopath. And Perf has something he feels entitled to. And Perf at that point is done taking shit. He's going to stand up for himself, and he gets, well, you saw what happened. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Oh, we're not done. Things look bleak right now, but this is our Han and Carbonite moment. How could they possibly come back together? Perf is dead, Nara is in torpor, Carrow has literally been cut in half. But what happened to Girl Knocking Yard? Where are the orcs? What happens when Rilke wakes up and realizes that Wren has drugged him in order to save his life? Glorion has the sword of fighting, which only seems to encourage the worst aspects of his behavior. He's also got Silver Tom there to document it all. Perf is fleeing from death. I don't know how you run from death, but he's managed it so far. So there is plenty of story left to tell, and we have 2 seasons to finish it.
So, thank you so much for watching JourneyQuest Season 3, The Pale Lady. I hope that you enjoy future seasons. I hope you go back and watch past seasons. We couldn't have been here today without you and all of your support, so continue doing that so we can continue making these shows for you.
Zheshkag. And Lektart Skaldudes Keslarega.
Thanks so much for joining us on this journey quest. We appreciate your patronage, and kill you later.
Thank you to the best fans in the world.
Give them more money so we have to do less in post.
Just wanted to give a big thanks to all of our backers and supporters. You are all truly lindet rubits.
The beard and bonnet is always open for you.
Thank you all for letting me play Nara this season. It's been a real treat.
By the light of Vieras, I thank you.